Veux-tu danser avec moi?
Well, Noah, on the last episode of Creative Collab, we talked about how to be a better client, mostly in the planning stages. Now we're going to talk specifically about feedback.
And I just, like I said on the other one, the point of this, right, is that, a lot of our clients, their main role is not to give feedback on video. It's a point where they get nervous, right? No one wants to hurt people's feelings. They want to give feedback in a way that's effective, that gets to the end result as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So these points are really to help you get the best result.
So the first point that I want to raise is aim for constructive feedback. Be specific and actionable. Can we swap this shot for a different shot? Can we adjust the font? These feedback are easy to address. And I talked to my business partner, Ben, who handles a lot of editing of our projects and receives a lot of feedback from clients. And he said, follow the 3 C's. Be consolidated, clear, and consistent.
I think as a creative director, a big part of my role is I look at it as my job is to translate clients' feelings into things that are actionable for someone like an editor. So I really feel like feelings are valid, so to me, like, we want this to feel confident, but somehow it feels aggressive could be a great note, or this feels too cold is still a great note. And for me, like, I can translate that, but it still needs that specificity. And I'll give an example. It's like when you go to the doctor. If you go to the doctor is not expecting you to know what your illness is and to say what your treatment is, or else you wouldn't need to go to the doctor. But if you go to the doctor and you just say, I'm feeling kind of, I don't know, meh, the doctor's going to have a hard time to know where to start. If you go to the doctor and you say, my stomach's hurting me a lot, and somehow it seems to be more, I don't know, in the afternoons than in the mornings, the doctor's going to start to know what kind of questions to ask, what kind of tests to do. So I think feelings are valid. Anything is valid, but it does need a certain kind of specificity, even if it's not direct.
It's helpful when the client's giving feedback, not just to point out the things that aren't working, but the things that they like as well. This has like a twofold effect of, first of all, giving some positive feedback to the person who's working on it and putting their energy into it, because there is a lot of work that goes behind this editing. But also it helps us understand what appeals to your senses, what things are working. We can push it in that direction. So part of it is just digging a little bit deeper if the feedback is a little bit vague.
You can come to us with what you feel is not working. You don't necessarily need to propose the solution. If you have a solution in mind, I feel like that's fine, but you need to mention what the problem is to give us context, either so we can propose an alternate solution that could be better, or even to just give us the context to execute. The famous editor, Walter Murch, talks about this thing called referred pain. And basically it's this idea that, sometimes someone's shoulder will be hurting them, but they'll go to the doctor and the doctor will figure out, well, the problem's not actually because of their shoulder, it's because of a pinched nerve in their back, right? And so the idea is that what's bugging you about a video, the pacing seems too fast. We might be able to diagnose and realize that the pacing could be fine, but maybe the communication of the message is confused, and so the audience can't absorb it well in the time, or something like that. So really defining the problem, not just the solution, is super helpful for us to do our best work.
One other thing that I think is really important when giving feedback is to understand what stage you're at in the editing process, because earlier in the rough stages, sound design isn't complete, color correction usually isn't done. So, it's our responsibility when we are sending a link for review to let the client know, ignore color correction for now and sound design. Let's focus really on the edit. Is the story there? Are we picking the right shots? Is the pacing good?
My philosophy is kind of like, people respond in this instinctive way. Sometimes I'll send things to clients with things that we want to polish and fix, but I'll not actually say what they are. And part of my reason for that is I just want people's natural, instinctive reaction. I tend to sort of send stuff more in like a vertical slice, like a smaller chunk that's more complete, so they can just give notes on everything.
There's feedback throughout the production process. Most of what we've been talking about has been on the post side, but you want to have that conversation going all the way through, from the pre-production and the early conceptualization, on set, giving feedback about actor performances, and all the way into the post.